Hello, Gunner James 105. So, the subject today is the Fairbairn Sykes fighting knife, but of the ribbed and beaded pattern, which, through my research, has shown to be quite a rare thing and quite sought after by those that collect these knives. So, and the thing too with this uh, ribbed and beaded, there are quite a few different variations. There was over 24 different makers of these knives, the FS, I'll call them FS knives for the Fairbairn Sykes. So a lot is not known regarding who made these, who uh, put these out, because they're not marked with any of the company's markings. So some people guess at some of the maybe the ones that were making the most knives. There's from these supposedly were from 1944 to 45. This style, and so it was suggested that William Rogers or J. Clark and Sons might have been the primary ones. But there's so many different markings, and I'll get to that. There are markings, but not factory designations. So, anyways, considered one of the finest designs, perfectly balanced, very nice, very nice pattern. And so this would be patterned after the second design. So it is a second pattern, or at the time what they called new pattern. It replaced the first pattern. First pattern had a bit shorter blade. You can do your own research on that. There was kind of a flat spot here, or ricasso, or whatever they call it. Blade was about a ½ inch shorter. It had a more diamond pattern on the handle, and most of those were this is a solid brass drilled out for the blade, of course, but a solid brass handle, as were the first pattern. A lot of those were nickel plated. Some of these were nickel plated, and so there is another pattern still that would even be more rare, which is what they call the ribbed and roped. So instead of these, what they call like a beaded pattern, it was almost looked like a rope. And with these as well, most common, you'll see 9 of these rows of beads, or 6. Even rarer still, some had 7 and 8, or 8. So different variations on the ribbed and beaded as well. So with the maybe doing some close-ups here, I do have, or initially in the collection, I started out with a replica because it's difficult to buy these. They're expensive, and so for myself, I thought, well, if anything, I can have a replica. It'll do as a stand-in. It'll, you kind of get the feel, the look, and whatever else. And the replica I bought was pretty nice. It was the third pattern. I'll show you that in this video. So W.E. Fairbairn, or E.A. Sykes. So William Ewart, I believe that's how it's pronounced, Fairbairn, or Eric Anthony Sykes. Their history is pretty incredible. So that's something you should check out if you haven't already. I picked up, and I'll just quickly show you these here, a couple of books. This one here. So this is a reprint, but just a really incredible book. And in this book, it gives you a lot of the history. This happens to be Sykes himself right there in some photos, but they go through a lot of the history of these two, and so quite incredible. And it goes through then a lot of their techniques they learned when they were with the police in Shanghai in the 20s and 30s. So there's a lot of drills, and this is more or less a training manual. And through here, they lay out just everything you need to know to deal with the bad guy. So they had a lot of experience in the back of the book, I'm just trying to get there, is I forget the name of the fellow that. Oh, sorry, it's the other book, because there's a second book I want to show you. But I don't think these are that expensive. I can't remember what I paid for it, but really, 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 really incredible book. This was the other one, and this one had a different title. I forget what the Americans were calling it. I think it was. Oh shoot, you'll have to forgive me on that one. But this is by W.E. Fairbairn, and this is a guide to a lot of hand-to-hand combat, disarming, all these techniques to get yourself free. So I've read both of these books once, and it was through the this area here then that gives you a lot of their detail on the effectiveness of this knife. There's some target points, and so use of the knife, and so they're giving you in great detail best methods. Then it moves on to this matchet. But if you want to know more of what it was like in that time to go through their training and all that sort of thing concerning hand to hand, and of course this type of knife here as well. So we'll move on. So this here, its markings. So this would be what they call a machine ground blade. It's very, very nicely made. This one has its very, very fine point, and there is a bit of an edge on there. So it's not overly sharp, but I mean, it wouldn't take much to bring it up to slicing ability. It's got kind of a brownish color to it. It's not rust, or almost I don't know what you call it. Not really maroon. So on them, when you find these, most often they will have the import for the U.S. for sure. Canada had, even on the rifles, etc., that came over, they would have the country of origin. So here we've got on the crossguard, England. So they did that, and then they also, even on the scabbard, or sheath if you prefer, there's a stamp there, England. These elastic type bands, this one's still there. Many of these that'll be missing completely. So that's still there. It's broken, of course. And so the back side of that, and you can see the brass turning a bit green. There's your tabs. You can sew that into your clothing. Some put it across their between the shoulder blades on their shirt, so you could, if you get your hands behind the head sort of thing, you can reach down and grab that, or you can put that inside your uniform or wherever. So you sew that on. This also has a rivet here. My replica doesn't have that. So it's original scabbard, and then where you'll find these markings. Oops, get over here. So they'll have a broad arrow and then a number. This one is a number 9. 6 and 9 you'll see the most of. 9 maybe the most. But they did have a 1, a 2, a 4, a 5, 6, 7, 9, 11, and 12. They've been spotted out there. And other than that, so besides a lot of these apparently were made for civilian use. This one with the broad arrow then was for military use. The fact that it has the England stamp on it says that it was a wartime issue and was stamped that way for import into the United States, Canada, etc. A lot of these, I mean, there's been recorded where you could have as many as, they've seen as many as 8 different styles of the nut on the top here, which would thread on. You can take this thread apart. This one here's, I haven't tried. It's a bit stiff. I don't want to break anything, but yeah, that nut just comes off. Handle will come off, and then your cross guard, and you're left with the blade and that shank that comes up through the handle. So This one here retains most of its, well, maybe half of its black paint. It would have been all black, and that's how most of them were. Some of them had a nickel plating on it, and so 7-inch blade on that. They came out then with the to finish up the third pattern, and that's where this replica comes in. So the third pattern, and some of the things I don't know. I compared the length of the scabbard to the original. This still fits all the way in, whereas this one, same length of blade. It's got a wider elastic strap. I don't think that's something the originals had, or maybe they did after the Second World War, because they were still making these. And it's got a different type of nut on the top there. So this one, in comparison, so you can see the blades pretty much identical. Handle's a bit longer on this one, and so the markings then on this one, I can't quite make out what the heck this is. Even with a magnifying glass, there's some sort of proof mark type thing on there. And then on the and this does have a very sharp edge, and a very sharp point. But right here on the cross guard, if it doesn't focus, goodness, I had it written down here. I think it's just let me see here. Yeah, so that's turning it so I can see it better. J. Noel and Sons, Sheffield, England. So it's very finely stamped in there. It's actually and then there's a broad arrow, and then some sort of a diamond pattern here. And they had this ringed grip, and no longer solid brass. It was some sort of metal alloy that they were making these. So it was cheaper. They saved the brass for ammunition, etc. Cheaper and quicker to make. It was criticized by some of the makers. They felt that this was threw off the balance, and they also felt that it was not as good a grip when it was wet. So that about sums it up, I believe. So a couple of them, this being a replica and this one being quite a rare and nice piece for the collection. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks for watching.